Hey Exile, PoE Academy here finally with one of my favorite skills in the game, Blade Vortex. This build is extremely good for clearing narrow layouts, so if you try to farm Mageblood div cards in Crimson Temple for example, definitely consider playing this build. Be warned though that the build requires some setup and unique items to start with, but as you can see in the background, the results are just insane for roughly 4 exalted orbs invested. Getting proper defenses for physical hits is easy with Determination, Grace and Defiance banner. You only have to make sure to get a helmet with either Grace or Determination Reservation Efficiency enchant and a small free passive cluster jewel with the Sublime Form notable to create enough space for all the additional auras that I will cover in the next sections. You also want to make sure to get spell suppression on your non-unit gear pieces. Getting good defenses for elemental damage is a bit tricky though, and the solution I came up with requires you to use the Divine Flash Keystone granted by a glorious Vernity Timeless Jewel with Zibakwa, this one. It channels 50% of incoming elemental damage into your chaos resistance. Using it only makes sense if your chaos resistances are higher than your elemental resistances, obviously. And it usually requires a lot of effort to reach high amounts of chaos resistances, but since we take the Withering Presence Ascendancy from Occultist anyways, we already got 60% chaos resistances to start with. And then there are the small cluster jewels with the Born of Chaos notables that grant 3% to maximum chaos resistances. You can guess where this is going. With 2 of these and 5% granted by the Timeless Jewel itself, you will sit at 86% maximum chaos resistances. Now you could add a third of these small cluster jewels, but I recommend using a small armor cluster jewel with the Enduring Composure mod that grants endurance charges on hit and even more armor for better physical mitigation. And if you want to mitigate bad build guides, you should consider subscribing to my channel for more solid builds, step-by-step guides, and all types of other PoE related stuff. Overall, the defensive setup is decent enough to tank most of what's coming your way, even with as little as 3k life, but you are a greedy exile, aren't you? With the Dwarf of the Cosmos active on the Atlas passive tree, large mod packs in T60 maps can be dangerous, which is why you will use your Molten Shell before running into them to make you nearly immortal. This build not only feels great because it's tanky, but it also has a lot of synergies to offer. For example, you want to increase the skill effect duration of your poisons to deal more damage because more poison stacks will overlap each other. But you also want to stack skill effect duration for Blade Vortex so that you don't have to cast it that often. Normally you would path into the center of the passive tree to grab the duration nodes over there, but since many chaos related notables grant skill effect duration anyways, you can completely skip the center area and focus on damage instead. The Occultist Ascendancy naturally wants to use curses to deal more damage, and you do so by using Despair and Temporal Chains. Did you know that Temporal Chains can also increase your damage? No? Well, reducing the action time of enemies not only makes them slower in general, but also lets debuffs expire slower on them. And guess what? Your poison is a debuff to enemies. It will be a bit difficult to fit in all the auras that you want for this build, so get yourself an Impressions amulet with Despair has no reservation if cast as an aura, since you also want to fit in Herald of Purity and Herald of Agony into your setup. If you struggle with Reservation, drop Herald of Purity for now. When all of your mana is reserved, you have to find another resource to cast Blade Vortex, and this is where Eldritch Battery comes into play. It lets you spend Energy Shield instead of mana for skills. Grab yourself one piece of Hybrid Evasion ES gear, ideally a chest, and you will have enough Energy Shield to comfortably use all your skills. You may also have noticed the Malevolence setup with Divine Blessing. Using it will remove almost 50% of your life and makes you prone to one-shots, so activate Molten Shell first, then use Malevolence and fill up your HP with a life flask. You will easily remember this and won't die once if you execute it correctly. A few words to leveling to close this. I tried to level this build with Toxic Rain as I was hoping to use as little respec points as possible, but it just felt miserable. Although Blade Vortex is available from level 12 onwards, better not use it until you can equip Unleash at level 38. If you have any idea on how to level this build with minimal respec points, share it with me and I will implement it in the POB, but until then, you simply have to use whatever leveling setup might be appealing to you until you can use Unleash. Thanks for staying with me until the end, happy hunting exiles, and see you in the next one.